Okay, so I know the last video I said I was gonna try to get um, my husband in on a video with me, and just his schedule for work has been changing at last minute. Um, my moods and whatnot have been more down than up, a little erratic and unpredictable. I mean, they're always that way, but whatever. And it's just, we have not been able to find a time where we were both in the right frame of mind to take it on. Um, so I'm going to do this one, and then the hopes is that the question and answer type one with my husband will hopefully be next week. He's finally, supposedly, or supposedly, whatever the correct word is, um, has a couple days off this coming week, and so we are going to be actively trying to make it happen during those times. I've done a couple little segments for it where I want to. I'm not really going to edit anything. I'm not removing anything. I'm just going to piece them together. Because one part of it's like a little intro type of thing, and the other one's like an update on it. And then hopefully will be the question and answer part. So that's the goal. If that doesn't happen, well, then you'll see another video of just me. Lucky you. Um, so I don't entirely know exactly what I want this video to be. Um, I'm sure by now you guys are probably tired of seeing me in my pajamas, but I did shower today. This is freshly washed hair. These are clean pajamas, and I did brush my teeth and put my other teeth in for you, so at least you get that. It's just, it was like 3:30 when I was done with my shower, and I thought, well, what's the point of putting fresh clothes on just to change out of them, in a few hours? Besides, my lightweight summer nightgowns are pretty freaking comfortable in this heat and humidity and whatever is going on. So that's what I'm doing. Excuse the extra noise. Walking upstairs there and directly above me, so it picks it up. I guess I should mention that per my I was telling my counselor, not my psychiatrist. I mean, my psychiatrist knows too, but I was telling my counselor about doing the YouTube channel here, and how I was getting very discouraged that I stupidly looked at the analytics of the first 3 videos, and the first one only had a couple views at that point. The second one, I think the second one had, like, on average, people were stopping. No, it was the first 2 videos, because the first video, on average, people weren't watching past 10 minutes. And then the second video had been up for like 5 days at that point, and nobody had viewed it. And I was beginning to feel like, what's the point, I can't help people if people aren't looking. And so I was voicing my frustration to her, and my feelings that, well, perhaps I would just give it up, because what's the point of doing the videos if there's going to be no benefit from it? And she had said what other people had said, that it takes time to get a YouTube channel going, and to get it out there and everything. And so she had suggested that like some other channels do, that I do a Facebook page to accompany the channel, where I share my videos too, and have a little bit more of a interactive setup for viewers. So if you have not found that already, or if you'd be more interested in that than getting on YouTube all the time, it is set up. It is the same name, same logo and profile picture and everything to keep it consistent and easy to find. I do upload my videos to that right after I upload them to, well, I share them to the page after I upload them here on YouTube. I also share articles and mental health related items that I get from other pages. And I also do just, I mean, I've only had it running for a few days now, but I have made a couple posts during the day, you know, sharing what I'm going through at that time and everything. And it's open for comments, and it's open for to send private messages. And I believe I have it set up so you can share posts of your own. They just have to be approved by me. So that's out there on Facebook if you're a Facebook person and interested in whatnot. And I was very nervous about putting this all out there on Facebook and everything. Just because there were, I might have actually talked about this in my last video, but I was very nervous of a couple people's reactions, and that brings me to something I think I do need to clarify, because it will be a recurring theme throughout a lot of this stuff. Yes, I have, I'm not going to say a horrible, but it's not the best relationship with my mom. And that has affected me negatively for most, if not all, of my life. But I think it warrants being said that, one, I do not hate her. In fact, I love her. You know, she's my mom. I do not believe, not even the slightest bit, that any actions throughout my life by her have been with the intent of hurting me in any way. You know, I don't, she's not a horrible person. She's not. She does the best she can. And, you know, I mean, she can't control how I feel and react to things. So, it's not fair to put that on her. You know, I know a lot of times, I will say or do things that if you don't know the whole picture, and if you don't really, you know, understand my thinking and whatnot, you might think my mom's this horrible person, because you only get this little glimpse of stuff. You don't get the whole everything. And it just, I need it out there that she is not a bad person. She is not, you know, she doesn't try to hurt me or anything. I mean, for crying out loud, hello, Rusty. Couldn't have given me anything that meant more than that. And, you know, I feel guilty saying that because he's my dog and not my biological child. But he's been a lifesaver and a safety net for, he's 7 years now. He's 7 years old. So, for that amount of time, he has been a consistent, totally unconditional love and acceptance that I didn't have before. So, that's a very big deal for me. That's one thing that is extremely important to me. I saw my psychiatrist this past week, and my husband went with me, and he'd actually had a print off of a very short article for another client, but since we were in there and we were talking about the borderline personality, he says, here, I want you to read this, and he sent it home with us, and it is like it's geared for the partner of somebody that has borderline personality disorder. And actually, now that I think about it, it might not just be the partner, it might just be somebody that loves somebody that with it. Can't remember, it's been a few days since I read it, and it shares some things in there, explains some ways that we think and how certain things will cause a reaction. It some things that we need that we might not be able to tell you we need. It was very interesting. And one thing I learned in there is that there's a 75% and there's a 25% of individuals that have this. And I am actually in the lesser group. 75% of people with borderline personality disorder, which is almost, if I understand correctly, it's almost always a result of trauma. It is your mind's way of protecting you. But that 75% of those of us with this self-harm. And at first I was like, wow, that's a lot, and why would you do that? But then I start thinking, and it makes sense. Like, if you've been through trauma or whatnot, odds are you had no control. You couldn't control the pain that came, and you couldn't control your circumstances. With self-harm, you control that pain. You have the power, and that makes so much sense to me. Now, that's not to say I'm going to start self-harming. No, I'm a baby. I don't like to hurt. But I understand it now, where I'd never thought about it before. And then I felt really fortunate that, wow, I hadn't gone down that more common path. So that I found that so interesting. So my husband read it too, and I just asked him about it last night, but I just asked if he had read it. There's just been so much with his schedule and other stuff that I didn't want to really get into it last night, so I told him I'd like to get his thoughts on it tonight. So that's the idea, is to go over it with him tonight and see if there was anything he was able to take away from it, and if so, what did he take away from it? And I might actually, I don't know, maybe that'll be part of the question and answer. Probably not, because I want to ask him tonight and get a feel for it. But I will definitely, maybe I'll do maybe I'll tack something on at the end of this where I record it tomorrow or whatever, and go over, share with you what he thought, and then tack on the link to the article. So if you are interested, you can look at that, because I thought it was very interesting, and I could see how it could be very beneficial. What else? We had a little snag Might have been the end of last week, actually. I can't remember now. Days just all roll into one and whatnot. But so I have this horrible, and horrible's not even a strong enough word. Like, I can. It's like a paralyzing fear of snakes. Horrible fear of snakes, to the point that I cannot look at a picture of a snake. It just it physically will upset me, and it just not good. And one day last week, I'd come down here to the office, and it was so hot, and I'd asked my husband if it was okay if I opened the window here, because it's got, I don't even know what you call it, but it's a little cutout where it's got the big cement walls where for code, I would guess, so you could turn this little area into a bedroom where you have to have it so you can get out in the event of a fire or whatnot. So it's this big cutout, and the window's big, but I opened it up, and I had asked him, I sent him a message because he was upstairs, he was just waking up, and I was like, oh, hey, is it okay that I open the window down here? It's not that I have to ask permission, it's just the way we have it set up so the air goes through, it cools, but I can never, I don't understand it very well, I guess, or whatever, but I'm never sure when it's safe to open the window to let the air go through and that it will be beneficial and not make it hotter or more humid. So that's why I was asking. And he's like, well, yeah, that's fine. If you want, you can turn the fan on, because we've got this big industrial fan in there too. And he says, and you can have it blowing on you. Okay, well, I'm like, great, awesome. Send him a couple, big cheesy grin emojis. And I go over there and I start turning it because it had been aimed towards his desk, which is on the other side of the basement here. And I see something hanging, and I'm like, oh God, please don't be what I think it is. Please don't be what I think it is. And I'm slowly turning it because I know in my gut exactly what it is. I'm already tense, and I'm already like, oh jeez, oh God. And as I get it turned around, yes, there's this head hanging there. Now, the fact that when I'm moving it, the tail, which is what I was seeing in the body, was just hanging limp. And when I turn it, the head didn't move. So I knew it was dead, but it was still a snake. And I freaked out, and I went tearing upstairs, and I blow through the bedroom door, and I'm like, there's a snake in the basement, there's a snake in the fan, blah, 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 blah. And I'm freaking out and freaking out and freaking out. And once he finally has me settled enough to understand what is going on, he comes down here and he's like, it was dead. I'm like, I okay, but what did you do with it? He's like, I put it in my trash. And I'm like, okay, well, now the window had already been open. And I'm like, did you close the window? No. Well, you gotta close the window. And I am freaking out. And I'm not kidding when I say easily 20 minutes later, my whole body was still just shaking, and I was just a wreck. And I'd left my phone down here at my desk, and I'd left, my coffee. Everything was down here. I didn't stop. I saw what it was, and I took off. So I knew I had to come back down here. And coming down the steps, I'm not kidding, my legs were jello. It was terrifying. It was just absolutely terrifying, because what had happened is we have some screen in the window that had been replaced, and there's a couple holes, and we had them duct taped, both sides of it, and obviously the little guy found a way in. And what my husband figures is he'd gotten up, because he was like in the wire of the fan, and it looked like he'd gotten himself stuck and he had died. And I'm like, well, obviously it had to be when the fan was off. So when did you shut the fan off last night? And he said, just before he went and closed the window to come up to bed. I'm like, okay, so then he was already in here. How did he get in here to get into the fan then? And because he wasn't a big snake, he had to have been, well, seeing as how I just saw him draped in there, I didn't see him straight out. I'm going to guess 6 inches, probably 8 at the very most. I don't remember what kind it is. I know I've seen it. I've seen the name before. It was just a brown snake. We don't even have venomous snakes here in Michigan. I mean, hello. I was safe. Even if it was a 5-foot long brown snake, I was safe. But it's what it was. And, so I'm like, all right, well, how did he get in then? I mean, obviously he came in through the hole, but how did he get in and get to the fan then? And so, what he figured is that he was crawling around up top and fell down into the thing and must have been in the track of the window. And when he closed the window, it came in. So that starts a whole new, like, okay, so he was right there and you didn't see him, and I'm freaking out, and I'm like, how do you know there's not more? How do you know we haven't, blah, 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 and he's like, there aren't more, it was a fluke, blah, 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 and that, yes, I know in my head the odds of there being another one down here is slim to none. It had to have been a fluke that happened, because we haven't had one thus far. But anyway, so I had to come back down and get my stuff, and so I spent, I had shoes on, but I was down here and it was, oh, okay, all right. I mean, I was constantly, if I felt any little twinge, I was looking and scoping out any corner, any nook, any cranny, especially in any cords. And then when I went up that night, it was like every time I closed my eyes, I kept seeing that stupid snake head and everything. And the next couple days, I couldn't bring myself down here. And it was only because I had to get a load of laundry done that I finally came down, and I had to have him come with me. I couldn't come alone, and I've slowly been able to, I'm a little more comfortable, rather, and I mean, I am still watching and everything, and right now I don't have my glasses on, so it's like, everything's blurry, so and I'm sitting here in my chair, and I've got a fan at my feet, and I keep feeling something, and it's like, But like, I know in my head it's most likely not a snake. But anyway, so, okay. Back to the hard time about this. So my husband's a very logical individual, and I had asked him one night after this had occurred, before I was able to bring myself back down here. And I'm like, is there anything in life? Sorry. I thought I felt something. Is there anything that you can think of that you are scared of? Is there anything that scares you? And he's like snakes scare you? No, there's not. I said, I had a feeling. I'm like, so you cannot fully understand. I'm like, you can't get what it's like to be this terrified of something. I'm like, it is genuinely terrifying. It is frightening. I don't know how many times it happened as a child. Maybe it only happened once and I've just replayed it in my head. I don't know. I do know that my brother was fearless, and I believe he still is, probably, with snakes. And so there were a number of times where he'd have pet garter snakes and whatnot. And I remember one time, it seemed like it was a rather big garter snake for a garter. And he threw it at me in the backyard. And that was terrifying. And he'd had them in the house, and he'd had, again, another large one that he'd built a cage for out of nylon screen and wood. Put a couple little mice in there for it to eat, only the mice ate a hole through the thing, got out, as did the snake. And The snake was not found in the house, but its quite large shed was a few days later. And that terrified me, you know. So, like, I've got this fear, this just paralyzing fear. And so he doesn't understand that. And he tells me that I'm being irrational. He thinks my fear is irrational. And that very much upset me. And so we kind of actually had a bit of a discussion about it, because I'm like, I believe that, yes, my behavior is most likely irrational. The fact that I'm avoiding the basement because this happened one time, that most likely was a fluke, that is probably irrational. I said, but I feel that I am very justified in my fear. You know, it's not just something I made up. It is something that is. And so I struggled with that for a couple of days. Had this anger and whatnot with him, and I'm pretty sure we've moved past that now, because I voiced my opinion and he knows how I feel about what he had to say, and that's it. You know, we're gonna just move past that. Well, then the other day, I get expectations in my head, and that very rarely ends up in a good situation. Had expectations of certain things occurring, because this, that, and the other thing, they didn't occur. And as soon as I realized that they were not going to occur, a wall went up, and that's a big defense mechanism of mine, is let's put this wall up to prevent future hurt from coming. And that's so frustrating. Like, I'm pretty sure I speak about this in my update video that should be in the next video, but like, it's frustrating, because I know what it does to his and my relationship, and I know how it makes me feel when that wall is up. Because I don't feel good. Like, I'm pushing away the one person that I need, and it's self-sabotage. I'm shooting myself in the foot. And I know how, once everything is addressed and I allow myself to put that wall down, I know how much more connected he and I are, and how much better I feel. So it just frustrates me that I do that. But so yeah, like that's bugging me. I don't know. It's just, I kind of, well, okay. So I wasn't going to mention this because I don't know if it's okay, I guess is the right way of putting it. My husband and I had talked for a few months now about the possibility of me exploring disability again. I did it, well, I've done it twice before. Once I had a horrible blowout on my back, and I was virtually bedridden for about a year. Until I had surgery, and then was able to, like, the day I went in for surgery, I could not walk straight up, and I had to use a cane, and I was 29. Like, it was horrible. I was disabled for a while. I went in and had a microdiscectomy, and I am not kidding that I think I was in recovery for like 2 hours, and then I was moved up to my room. So I think it was like less than 3 hours from when I was wheeled out of the operating room. I was up and walking. I mean, I was holding on to my IV pole just to keep steady because of the anesthesia and stuff, but I was standing up and walking. And so, a few months after that, I was able to go back to work. So it was a closed case. Like I was granted benefits for that period where I couldn't work, but I didn't feel the need to go beyond that because I was able to work. You know, it's foolish to try to get benefits when I was able to do it, and I was doing it. Okay, well, I'm not sure where that cut off, but for some reason, I was getting a phone call and it stopped my recording. That's never happened before. I've gotten messages and whatnot during recording, and it just like tossed them to the side and kept recording. I don't know why that interrupted, so I'll have to go back and check when I piece this together, I guess. But anyway, so there was that. I did that one, and then a couple years ago, I filed again because I was out of work. At that point, I'd been out of work for like 2 or 3 years because of the mental health issues, and there'd been so many jobs since I started working 20 years ago that I was like, you know, it wasn't going well. Anyway, got denied. It was an automatic denial because of my age, and then went through the appeal, and I had a great lawyer, and I had a psychiatrist that said, she's, you know, I could get a job. I might be able to hold one for 6 months, but that's about it. I wasn't fit for the workplace, and long story short, judge threw it out. The lawyer was pretty sure that he should have listened to that letter and whatnot. But anyway, so I didn't do it. But now that I've got new diagnoses and whatnot, and I've lost yet another job, and blah 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 blah, I reapplied. I just did the application like a day or two ago, so you know, we're just waiting on that. I'm not gonna really discuss that much until, or maybe not even then, because I don't know if it's okay to even talk about it like, you know, out there publicly or whatnot with a pending case. I don't know how that works. So anyway, put that out there, and we're hoping that that will help alleviate some of the stressors. At least help me feel better. I don't feel like I contribute much of anything to this place. Though, I did a week or so ago, I was able to tear the drain out of our kitchen sink. And I also did some undoing of plumbing. Long story there. I was stupid. And replace the rubber washer, the friction washer, and the locking nut under the drain, as well as putty the drain assembly. And now it doesn't leak, so that's pretty cool. Except I noticed today, I noticed it a few days ago too, but I figured it just needed to dry. But I noticed today some of the putty is coming out in the sink when I do dishes, so I gotta check that out, see what I need to do about that. I thought I'd had it cleaned out pretty good, but obviously I didn't. But it's still not leaking, so I don't know. Probably talk to my grandpa about that. Anyway, I don't know. Like, yesterday was a horrible day. I share this on my page, on the Facebook page, but for those of you that don't look at that, like, my husband literally had a 4-hour shift, so he was gone like 4.5 hours yesterday. It actually ended up being more like 4 3/4 hours, just under 5 hours. But anyway, I knew he wasn't going to be gone long. And I was outside doing something when he was leaving, so I stayed in the garage and watched him go. And as I'm watching him back out and start going down the road, and then I turned to hit the button to close the garage door, like, I just was just hit with this overwhelming sadness, and like this, like he was leaving and he was never coming back. And oh my lord, it just hit me hard. It was Like, I feel horrible that I need him so much and I need him with me so much, because I feel like that's so not fair to him. That doesn't, like, it's smothering to him. I feel absolutely blessed that I have somebody that I can feel that way with, but I fear what it is going to do to him. I don't want it to wear on him. But fortunately, he's just absolutely understanding, and a lot of times I feel like he's too understanding. Um, but I don't know. It just seems to be getting worse like that, where it's just I miss him more and more when he's gone, and I don't know. I think, like, I don't feel safe when he's not with me, and it's not like I feel like somebody's gonna hurt me, like beat me up or whatever. It just, he's my security blanket. Having him right there is my security blanket, and I think a lot of it's just because I've opened up so much to, like, the counselor and my psychiatrist. I mean, I'm telling my psychiatrist things he never knew, which has been, like, very beneficial, because now he can see, these different aspects, and is like, wow, okay, so yep, we were kind of off base. Had I known this, we could have changed treatment a while ago. But, I didn't feel safe doing it. I didn't feel okay being open and vulnerable. Now I am. And I think that's why I struggle so much with him not being here, is just because I am so open and so vulnerable, and I've put so much out there now that it's like, what if somebody says something? What if somebody does something? What if they want to talk about something and I don't have, this shield or whatever to push that back? Because as much as I don't want to talk about certain things and I'm uncomfortable in a lot of situations, as opposed to hurting the other person's feelings, I am going to sit there and I'm going to allow myself to be tortured instead of upsetting them. And with him here, that doesn't happen because he's my buffer. He's able to get me out of a situation most times. So, I think that's part of the reason why I struggled so much with him being gone, is that I don't have that buffer. I don't have that little protective coating that I need. Anyway. So, I think that's all the main stuff that I really wanted to get shared. Like I said, the goal is to, on one of his days off this coming week, to sit down and do the question and answer. I have, I don't know, maybe 20 questions to ask him. And he is not much of a talker, even on a good day, unless it's like a subject that he's really excited about. He doesn't really talk a whole lot. So I don't imagine it's going to be a very long video and there's going to be much discussion. But hopefully, we'll get some input. So, between then and now, I've got to apparently piece these two videos together. Oh, that frustrates me that I did that. I wonder if it's because I didn't have my ringer off. I was going to do that before, and I didn't. But, alright. So, this should be put out. This is Friday, so this should be put out on Sunday. And like I said, there is a Facebook page called Sarah's Corner. Same logo, same profile pic. I believe the username is at Sarah Shrum's Corner. No apostrophe in the username. So that's SHRUM. Until next time, folks.